Hi everyone, this is Andre from ZHSI. Recently I've been getting a lot of questions and emails and Facebook messages about how to set it up. So I thought I'll do a quick video to show you guys how to set up ZHSI. Um, First off, you need Java. Now, from version 2.00, um, ZHSI uses Java FX for the UI. Now, it just makes it easier for me. I know I don't do a very good job at designing UIs. Sorry about that, but it's Java FX makes it easier. It's a bit more modern and makes it easier to style the stuff and instead of using the old swing user interface. Java version 8 at the moment still ships with Java FX built in. Java 10 I think still does, but I know for a fact Java version 11 does not ship with Java FX anymore. They've removed it, but you can download it separately and install it if you need to. Uh, the instructions are on that URL. For Linux users, even with Java version 8, I think they install OpenJDK or OpenJDK 8 or something like that. You might still have to install OpenJFX separately via apt-get or whatever package manager you use on Linux. But obviously at the moment I'm using version 8 update 191, and if you look on this URL quickly, it'll show you at this time the latest recommended for me is version 8 update 191, and that's what I have, and that's what I use to develop ZHSI with. So I recommend the same version if you can. ZCDU is still a little standalone app on the side. It's our plan to integrate that into ZHSI in the future, so it's all one package. So ZHSI only at the moment comes in a jar file, Java, what they call a jar file. Now I used to do it in a Windows and a Mac app separately, but it takes a lot of time for me to package it up, and I've decided I'm just going to do the jar file. It's quicker for me. Sorry. Now people run into a few trouble. They double click the jar file and it does nothing. For me on my machine it does. I can just double click my jar file and it opens up. So what I recommend then to do is you can run it, and it's a nuisance, I'm sorry, but you can run it from the command line, change to the directory where you have downloaded your ZHSI jar file, and just issue java -jar in the file. Now I recommend to at least use or ask you know the OS or whatever to allocate a maximum heap memory size of 2 gig to the Java virtual machine. The reason being is that ZHSI, when it starts up, it reads all the nav data into memory. So that includes airports, fixes, VORs, runways, all that stuff, and also the tile, the terrain data into memory, and that's big. I mean, it needs to load all the. It's about, I think it's about 130 meg a tile, but I'll talk about that later on. So I recommend using this flag. This flag here, XMX 2 gig. That just says allocate a maximum heap size of 2 gig. I don't have to do it on my PC. I can double click. My Windows OS allocates about 4 gig automatically. There's ways to set it up so it does it for you automatically, but you're going to have to Google that one. In future versions of ZHSI, I might include a batch file so that you can just double click and it'll issue this command for you automatically, and you don't have to type it in a command prompt. The plugin is another thing that people get a little bit confused about, because the new version from version 2.10 uses a new plugin that I wrote. Well, sorry, I didn't write it completely. It's a fork of the Xplane plugin, which I've changed to my own needs with permission, of course. So from version 2.10 of ZHSI, you need to install this plugin. Now it comes in, it's, if you can see, let me go back here. There, it's in there. I'll highlight it. ZHSI 64 just means 64. Now in there you'll see there's Win, Linux, Mac, and Windows. I only worry about the Windows one on my machine because it's obviously Windows. But if you run Mac, you put the Mac or Linux in there if it's Linux. I've tested the Mac, I think that works. I've not really tested the Linux plugin because I do not have a Linux machine running Xplane. So I'm not sure, but it should work. So see, this is two different plugins, Xplane and ZHSI, oops, sorry, oh my word. And ZHSI are two different plugins, even though they do the same, you know, they kind of work the same way. They are two different plugins. So if you use, for example, Xplane CDU is an Android app, I think that Wayne wrote. He uses the Xplane plugin, so still keep that plugin if you want to. If you need to, keep it there. If not, you know, you can delete it or whatever. But from version 2.10, you need this new plugin, and they're separate. They can be run together in the same thing. So just create and, for example, ZHSI plugin directory under your resources plugins under Xplane, and copy the XPL file that you need in there. If you want the newest version of Xplane, for reasons, you know, I'm not going to be keeping that up to date anymore from now. So you can go down here to the guy who wrote Xplane, and special thanks to him for permission also to modify it to my needs, and you can get the latest version from his official repository. Windows Defender Firewall, if you run a Windows firewall or whatever, Linux maybe, if you run a firewall, make sure you allow port 52,000. That is what ZHSI listens to. On Windows Firewall, it should be sufficient to just allow xplane.exe through your firewall, and it should work, and you should be able to communicate. Xplane IP address. That's should be self-explanatory, but if you run ZHSI on the local PC, like I do sometimes for testing purposes, you can just keep the default 127.0.0.1. That means the local host or local PC. I know, for example, I know my Xplane PC is running on 1.27 on my local network, so I can put that in either as well. You can click on apply. You don't really need for IP address. You don't really need to restart ZHSI because it will automatically do it. But for the other two options, yeah, just restart it because it reads those files from startup. But anyway, I'm going to put back in what I use on my local PC for now. If you don't know what if you run this on a different remote PC, you have to put in the IP address of the Xplane PC. If you don't know what it is, you can go to Settings Network under Xplane, and you can see there with a red arrow, it'll show you what the IP address in your local LAN is. Now, obviously, my network is 192.168.1, blah, whatever. Yours might be different. It's just what I have set up on my local PC. The next source of confusion, which is the new way this works. Now, obviously ZHSI needs to know the details of all the airports, the runways, the VOR stations, and all that sort of stuff in order to be able to display that info on the ND. I don't just copy Zibo stuff. I use some of my own logic, and I need to know where the nav data is. Now, there's two ways. The first way is if it's on a local PC like I have it running here, you just put in your Xplane directory in that thing. So you click on browse. Mine is here on my D drive, Xplane 11, just select the folder and say select folder, and it puts it in there, and that's it. So once you restart ZHSI, it will know where to find your app.dat file. It'll know where to read the other files it needs, and that's it. But if you run this on a remote PC, and that's the whole point of ZHSI, then there's two ways you can go about it. You can either create a network share. So you have to share your X-Plane directory. So in order for a remote PCs on a different PC on your network to be able to access the X-Plane folder, or there's a new way since version 2.0 or something that ZHSI creates a directory automatically called a ZHSI nav data, and then you can copy these 4 files in there. These 2 files here will be automatically generated by reading the apt.dat file. So if it can't find these 4 files locally in the ZHSI directory, it needs to know where X-Plane is located in order to read those files. So I'm going to show you now. I've done it already. I'm going to show you how to create a network share. And I think I've already done it. Let me have a look. Properties. Sharing. Yeah, I've done it. Let me remove that quickly. Yeah, okay. So in order for, this is on my D drive on my X-Plane PC. This is my X-Plane installation or X-Plane directory, and all you have to do, this is on Windows 10. It might be different for different OSs. I don't know. For Windows 10, all I do is I right click, I say properties, go to sharing, share. I add everyone in there. I don't know, you might not need to do it as read access, but anyway, and then you click share, and it will take a few minutes, maybe just a few seconds, and it'll be shared on your network. Okay, so that's a share done. Close. Okay, that's the one way. I'll come back later and I'll explain, or I'll hop onto another PC. I've got another Windows 7 laptop, old laptop, that I'll show you now how to set this up. But there's another way too, which I will show. You can either do the share drive, like I mentioned here, but if you don't, or you don't want to do that, or you're running into trouble, you can just copy these 4 files, and ZHSI will read them locally, and then it won't care about the X-Plane folder or a share drive. But let's hop over to the Windows 7 laptop, and I'll show you how to configure it from there. Okay, so here I am on this is an old Windows 7 laptop, so bear with me, it might be slow. So on the GitHub page, not GitHub, I'm on GitLab now. People also ask me, oh yeah, but I need, I don't have a login. You don't need to log in. See, I'm not even logged in, but you can access the files. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download the latest one that's on there. Yeah, and download that. Okay, it's done, downloads. I've done that already, but I'm going to just copy it to my desktop. And then I'm going to just extract that, extract all. I'll just call that something. Okay, so it's on my desktop. Okay, so again, you can see that I can just double click. It might take a while because this PC is slow, but double click, you see it works. I don't have to run anything and it opens up. Let's see, let's open it. Yeah, it works. Options. Yeah, see, this one only allocated me about 800, say, I think probably about 900 meg, or maybe around a gig. It might be okay, but anyway. Config. So over here, obviously now, boom, I have to put in my IP address of the remote PC like we've seen before. That is 196.168.127. There is no error checking in that, so it just assumes that is the IP address. So I'm just going to try and connect to that IP address. Explain directory. Now this is where people get confused. Now browse. Let me see if this will work. I recommend you map a network drive. See, there's my desktop. That's where my desktop is, where my X-Plane is installed on. But I don't really go, I don't double click that. It's not username and stuff. Let's put that in. Okay, there's my explain share. I don't really go and select that. You can select that, select folder, and that's fine. Look at that. There it is. But I don't really do that because it might, every time you boot up, that might change a little bit or anything. So what I normally do, I go back to my Explorer, go into my network. Where's my desktop here? It's not here. Oh, well, anyway, let's do this then. I know 192.168.127. That's the IP address of my explain PC. There we go. Then what I do is I right click on it and I say map network drive. Now it might be different on Windows 10. This is an old Windows 7 laptop, but map a network drive. So I map it, say for example, to Z. Oh, let's do it X for explain. Be cool about it. So reconnect that login, leave that on, connect using different credentials. I don't know. Anyway, finish. So now you've got a drive, like any other drive. X drive on your PC is now explain, but it's actually living over on the remote explain PC. So every time this PC boots up, assuming that your explain PC is up and running, it'll map this network drive. Now the problem is people boot this up, the explain PC isn't running yet, so people, and then it can't map this drive, and you have problems, and you have to go in and do that. But I'll show you a different way. That's why I've done another way. But for now, let's assume this is the way you want to do it. So in there, then what you can do is just go browse, select that X drive there, select folder, Bob's your uncle. So it says restart, so let's just quickly close it off. This is going to take a little bit longer to reload because it needs to, it now knows where to get the explain data. It's going to, let's see where it is. So now once I start it up, it's going to take a little bit longer to do. The reason why, you'll see in that nav directory, is going to now create 2 files. Because now it reads the explain folder remotely over the network. It reads 4 files mainly. It reads the app.dat file. It reads your nav data. And it's going to create, but these 2 files are created by reading through the app.dat data. That's the airports, and that's all the runways. And it creates just a file format that I can easily read in ZHSI for me. So it's going to take a while. This only happens once. See that is now created. It's got a thing now, and nav data now says my RX cycle is 812. So now it can read it. See, all it shows is X there because that's where my explain on X drive. Cancel. That's one way of doing it. But since a lot of people's got problems with mapping network drives and losing network connectivity for some reason on network drive, I created a new way since this version, since I think version 2, there's a new way of doing it. You don't have to worry about this anymore. All you have to do is close that up. Go to this custom data. This is where I've installed, I've got a Navigraph. It's a Navigraph subscription, so I've got my data. So these 3 files, copy them. Let me open up a new one here just so people can see. Open Explorer, desktop. Place them in that. Paste them in there. Alright, and the other file that's the important one is normally, it's in your explain, resources, default scenery, I think, yeah, default app.dat, nav, app.dat, that one. Copy that one too, and place it in there. Okay, that's going to take a while. So what happens is, when it ZHSI on boot up or on startup, it will check if these 4 files exist in this directory. If it does, it reads it from there. It doesn't need to then check over the network or go to the explain directory and read it. That said, when you update explain or update your nav data, then just remember to copy the new files over to the ZHSI PC again in this location. Overwrite those files, and ZHSI should detect whether the app.dat file and the files are newer and should reread them on startup. Then you don't have to worry. Once those files are in there, you don't have to worry about mapping a network drive, or if you can't map a network drive, just maybe copy it on a USB stick and move it over to that PC. Obviously you have to do that every time, but I mean, a network drive, for me it works. I mean, other people for some reason struggle, it doesn't work for them, I don't know. Okay, so that file are copied over now. So I've got these 4 files now in my local ZHSI, in my ZHSI nav data directory. These 2 files, obviously, they will be created automatically by reading the app.dat file. So don't worry about these will be done automatically. If you think they are outdated for any reason or feel, you can delete them and it will recreate them for you, assuming it knows the path or knows the data. Now I'll show you. Let's go back now and start it up again. So I think it probably detected now. Yeah, see it now. It's recreating those 2 files by reading this file, because it sees this file is now newer, because I guess the modification date is newer anyway. So if you look in the log file, let's reload that log file. Now you'll see here it says local app.dat found in ZHSI and app.dat. Then we'll use that if needed. So now it's reading that file locally. App.dat file exists but is outdated, so it's trying to create, so it's generating the 2 new files. Okay, so that is what happens. So now let's just config. I can go here, I can just select any folder, it doesn't matter, select it. I was going to say anyway, no, let's just do a different folder, doesn't matter. It'll say your explain direction not bad, it's fine. Okay, then it's going to clear that thing. So now I'm going to just show you, close that down again and just start it back up. ZHSI. And RxI is still there, because now it reads, it doesn't care now. It doesn't care now about your explain directory anymore, because it now has the files in that local folder there, and it can read all the required files from that folder. That's the only reason why ZHSI needs to know the location of explain, because it needs access to these 4 files. But if you can copy them over locally onto your PC, it doesn't need to know about where explain is installed anymore. Okay, so we're back on the main explain PC. I've explained to you I know how to do this network drive over here. Obviously on my local PC I don't have to worry about it, I'll just put my local drive in there. Where were we? So if you don't want to do the network PC thing, like I've explained, copy those 4 files, it'll read them locally. You don't then have to even worry about I've noticed also a quick thing. I've noticed that I keep on pointing with my mouse, but I think it's because of my 4K monitor. The actual mouse pointer in the videos doesn't correlate to the actual position on my screen. So what I'll try is just highlight stuff so you can see what I'm talking about. So yeah, so if you copy these 4 files, that will then be read locally, and ZHSI don't really then care about what you put in there. The rain falls quickly, the government is shut down at the moment, the US government, so that doesn't work. So it's due to the shutdown. But I've got it in a Google Drive if you need it, so let me know. The important thing here is the files are read into memory. Every time it starts up, there's actually only, I know I've put 17 tiles in here, but there's actually only 16 that I read. But it's loaded into memory every time ZHSI starts up. So it takes a bit of memory. It takes around, it hovers around a gig, maybe a little bit more sometimes, but I would say 2 gig is sufficient. So if you only fly in the US, then only include the tiles that you need in that directory. You can move the others away or delete them, whatever you want to do. Probably just move them into a different directory. I can probably show you. what I do is on my I think it's Explain downloads. See, here's all the tiles, but in this directory here, I've only included the tiles that I actually fly in. So A, B, I don't think I need that A11. Anyway, but A, B, E, and F, that's the only ones I use, because it's the US tiles, and I only really fly in the US. So that's all you need in there. And you'll see, I don't know if I can highlight this for you. I can't highlight it for you, but yeah, the bottom right hand corner, the terrain DB status says is amber, and that is because it detected that I've not loaded every single tile. It'll say only tile A and B has been loaded, and E and F is come on E and F. Anyway, you get the thing. So E and F is loaded, A and B is loaded, and that, as you can see in the tile map above, that's A, B, E, and F. That covers about most of the northern US and, or the US. If you fly in Europe, probably like include B, C, E, and G maybe. South Africa, where I'm from, is easy. You just include tile K and you're set to go. Weather radar quickly. That only, no one really had any problems with that. So, but I'll just quickly explain. If you run it on multiple PCs, so for example, you have one PC running the captain side, one PC running the FO side or first officer side, and you want both PCs on that network of yours to receive the UDP packets, or the UDP, the network packets. Then instead of just using one IP address under Explain, you can put in your broadcast address for your network. But then, for that to work, both that PCs must be on the same network as the Explain PC. That 255 at the end means just broadcast. So Explain will broadcast it to your whole network. So that means if you have a phone on that network, if you have a smart TV or your girlfriend's laptop or whatever, they will also receive those UDP weather packets from Explain, but it doesn't matter. It's so small and tiny and minute, it's not going to make any difference. But it'll mean that every PC that you run ZHSI will receive these UDP packets and should be able to display the weather details. Annunciators, that's a new thing that I've included. I've not really launched that yet. It's just a way for you to add your own annunciators to ZHSI. People have been asking for annunciators, but there's a lot of them in the cockpit, and instead of me adding every single one, I've created a way for you to do a few. In the new UI I'm building, by the way, I'm building a new UI, so apologies for that. It's going to look a bit different, the new one, but hopefully a bit more modern. But that will include a way of editing a file that you can add your own annunciators. So you can do it in nose gear or whatever, and you have to specify the data ref. All the info on how to set it up is here too, but that's not released yet. So I think that's about it. ZHSI only needs to know 3 things. It needs to know the IP address of the Explain PC. It needs to know where it can find the Explain directory, or where these files are. Now, all it needs to know is it needs to be able to read these 4 files. And if you copy these 4 files into your ZHSI nav directory on your local PC, which runs on a network wherever, then you don't even have to worry about the network drive sharing or putting the Explain folder in the config. It'll just read these 4 files locally, and in turn, by reading these 4 files, especially the first file there, it'll automatically create these 2 files too. But it needs all of them, because it needs every single airway fix and runways and whatnot. It needs that to be able to show the airports and the VOR stations and stuff on the ND. And then, if you run terrain data, it needs to know where you've downloaded your globe tiles and the weather. Okay, so it actually needs 4 things. And that's it. I hope that helped some of you guys. Um, yeah, so obviously I'm doing this for free. I'm not asking for any money. I had a Patreon support page, but I don't want to get into too much detail about it. But that's got deleted. I don't want to do business with Patreon anymore. So thank you for the guys who supported me on there. I appreciate it. Really, it's great. Obviously, with that comes a lot of emails, a lot of questions, a lot of time that I have to spend on, so to speak, support issues, or So hopefully this video was helpful. If you have questions, comment. I might do another video. Um, Thank you guys. Thank you for the support, and I hope this helped. Thanks.